I'm announcing that the Department of Labor is developing an emergency rule to require all employers with 100 or more employees that together employ over 80 million workers to ensure their workforces are fully vaccinated.
Well, there you have it. The Mad King, President Joe Biden, is issuing more dictatorial decrees from Washington, which is exactly the opposite of what the President of the United States is supposed to do. But nevertheless, Joe Biden is doing it because Joe Biden does whatever Joe Biden wants, regardless of its constitutionality, its legality, its health benefit for the country as a whole. Joe Biden just does whatever he wants. So we have to talk about that, unfortunately. Really irritated by this, but, you know, we're just going to hash it out and then move on because or else we're all going to get irritated the rest of the day. So Joe Biden, the new tyrant in Washington, D.C., as well as maybe the reasoning behind that, also what's going on in California with the Gavin Newsom recall. All that and more on this episode of the Jobob Show. Thanks so much for tuning in. It starts right now.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Live from a dingy bunker, completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is the Jobob Show. Thanks for tuning in today. It is September 10th, Friday, the day before the 20th anniversary of September 11th. Don't really have a lot of that stuff in the show lineup for today because Joe Biden decided to do crazy things as he always does today, which now we have to talk about that. But again, not lost on me that tomorrow is the anniversary of 9/11. 20 years ago, the United States was under attack, and we responded in a way that I don't know that we would today, which is scary to say. And I think China knows that, and I think our adversaries know that. Whether or not it panned out well, the United States responded with force in 2001 to the terrorist attacks in New York City and in D.C. Today, who knows if the administration would have the backbone to do anything even close to appropriate if we were to be attacked in the same way now. But nevertheless, times have changed, and that's just where we are today. Again, not a lot of 9/11 stuff, given that we have to get to the insane mandates from the president again, and a lot of the thoughts surrounding that. I honestly think it's a head fake. I'll explain more of that coming up. I think Joe Biden and the administration are the most cynical people on the planet and is sending us all a head fake, saying, look over there and get our attention away from all of the failures outside of COVID, and we can get back into our camps. Politically, at least. That's what I think is going on. I'll explain a lot more of that in just a few seconds, right after I tell you about the Jobob Show Shop. The Jobob Show Shop is online on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you are watching this right now. You can click the link in the description to go to the Jobob Show Shop, where you can get all of the awesome gear to tell your socialist friends that their ideas totally suck. It's up to you to spread capitalist propaganda, capitalism shirts. You got your fun arcade capitalism stuff. Go ahead, use your iPhone to tweet about how much you hate me. This is the one I'm wearing today. You're welcome. Love capitalism. The Capitalism Rock shirts, and this is now into my favorite new stuff. This is totally applicable, especially today. The Joe Biden catchphrase t-shirt. What? Says Joe Biden. Clearly the man doesn't know what's going on. He will be institutionalized sooner or later. More than likely before the end of his term. So this t-shirt is completely indicative of the president and his current mental state. Also, if you live in California, this is a fun one. Corruptifornia t-shirts are now available, and also the ever-popular Recall Gavin Newsom t-shirt. Available now at the Jobob Show Shop. Head on over to the link in the show description. Help support us, keep us on the air, doing what we love doing, bringing you the infotainment of the day. Head on over to the Jobob Show Shop. Tell your friends that their socialist ideas totally suck by wearing all the gear that promotes capitalist propaganda over and available in the Jobob Show Shop. But back to the Mad King Joe Biden. If you don't understand the Mad King reference, go watch Game of Thrones. It'll make sense then. If you've already watched Game of Thrones, yeah, this is now what I have to compare Joe Biden to. The Mad King who decrees overall what he wants. We played a clip early on at the beginning. I'm going to replay that and then obviously let it run a little bit more before we have some commentary. Here is the Mad King Joe Biden commenting on vaccine mandates that he's now rolling out 2 days before the 9/11 20th anniversary. Keep that in mind. Trying to get all the bad optic eyes off of the disaster in Afghanistan, especially with 9/11 coming up. Here's Joe Biden talking. Again, if you have comments, leave it in the comment section. Love to know what you think. If I'm missing a point or if you disagree with me, hit it in the comment section and we'll see if we can get to him. Here's the Mad King.
I'm announcing that the Department of Labor is developing an emergency rule to require all employers with 100 or more employees that together employ over 80 million workers to ensure their workforces are fully vaccinated or show a negative test at least once a week. Some of the biggest companies are already requiring this. United Airlines, Disney, Tyson's Food, and even Fox News. The bottom line, we're going to protect vaccinated workers from unvaccinated coworkers.
Okay, so that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. If you haven't already, we have an episode on vaccine mandates over at the Daily Caller, the show Quality Control that I do once a week over there. Did an entire thing on vaccine mandates, the CDC numbers surrounding vaccine mandates, and the need for them, which is none. If you're vaccinated, again, this is not an anti-vax show. I'm not an anti-vax person. If you're vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccine, your chances of dying from COVID are less than your chances of being shot in Chicago. I'll say that again. If you're vaccinated, you're more likely to get shot in Chicago than die of COVID. If you're vaccinated, you're 20 times more likely to die in a car accident than die of COVID. If you're vaccinated, you're 550 times more likely to die of heart disease than COVID. So what the president just said is just wrong. Protecting the vaccinated coworkers from the unvaccinated coworkers? What the hell are you talking about, dude? That doesn't make any sense. If the vaccine works, which the CDC numbers would show that it does, if the vaccine works, vaccinated people are already protected, regardless of if other people are vaccinated or not. And we're not even getting into the constitutionality of it because that's all over the place. What the president just says, that's got to be one of the dumbest things he said. We're protecting unvaccinated people. We're protecting vaccinated people from unvaccinated people. Okay. I made a reel last weekend that I thought was funny. Turns out to be, this is how the White House thinks. Make sure to wear your sunglasses this weekend to protect others from the sun. That makes about just as much sense of what Joe Biden just said, protecting unvaccinated people from vaccinated people. From the numbers that his own CDC is putting out. On top of that, getting into the constitutionality of the thing, the Biden administration, I don't know if you know this, now has a record of just completely ignoring the Constitution. They did it with the eviction moratorium, if you remember, not even a month ago. I don't think. The Supreme Court said, yeah, the CDC can't continue to issue eviction moratoriums. That's not in the CDC's scope. CDC, Center for Disease and Rent Control, apparently, according to Joe Biden. Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. And the Biden administration, if you were paying attention, said, we're going to do it anyway. Which made the Supreme Court say, well, you can't do that. Joe Biden specifically and blatantly went against the Constitution as dictated by case law of the Supreme Court. Has it history of completely ignoring the Constitution this president has. Now, is that impeachable? Probably. The whole oath of office is to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. If the president of the United States completely ignores the Constitution, is that not an attack on the Constitution itself, President Biden? So if he's done that in the past, who's to say he won't do it again? Which in this instance seems like that's the case as well. Remember, health dictates, mandates, whatever you want. Health is almost entirely in the Constitution up to the states. The federal government stepping in and saying, no, we're going to take this over now, is outright unconstitutional. Now, to be fair to the president and what his new dictate edicts are, he's saying that you either need to be vaccinated or you can submit a test. So it's not like if you're not vaccinated, you're going to be fired today, according to the president. He's saying that you got to get vaccinated or have a test. Now, I would imagine if your company has over 100 employees, they're going to pay for that test if you decide to not do it. Realistically, the companies haven't already done it. I can't imagine they care. Because again, if you're following the science, like your wackadoo liberal media claimed to have been doing for the last 18 months, the science says that if you're vaccinated, you're freaking fine. Don't walk around Chicago because you're more likely to get shot there, Lori Lightfoot, than die of COVID with the COVID vaccine. But nevertheless, the Mad King Joe Biden feels like he needs to issue dictates from the seat of the federal government to the people. Let's listen on to more ridiculousness from the Mad King.
My message to unvaccinated Americans is this. What more is there to wait for? What more do you need to see? We've made vaccinations free, safe, and convenient. The vaccine has FDA approval. Over 200 million Americans have gotten at least one shot. We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. President. I didn't know that the American people were supposed to conform to your level of patience. I'm sorry. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know that you can dictate based on your patience level, which, historically speaking, grumpy old men don't have a lot of patience. Case in point, the Mad King Joe Biden. Ridiculous. Let's listen on.
And your refusal has cost all of us.
No, it hasn't.
So please do the right thing. But just don't take it from me. Listen to the voices of unvaccinated Americans who are lying in hospital beds, taking their final breath saying, if only I'd gotten vaccinated. If only. It's a tragedy. Please don't let it become yours.
Take it from the people that are dying in hospital beds because they're 200 pounds overweight because they decided to eat fast food every single day for their entire life. Take it from them. That is why we need to ban all fast food, and Americans need to consume a diet of only spinach, celery, carrots, and other vegetables that are approved by the government. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not what he's saying. No, what he's saying is, if you're dying taking your last breaths of lung cancer because you smoked for the last 40 years, take it from them. That is why we need to ban all smoking whatsoever. Oh, sorry, wait, that's not what he's saying either. But those are exactly in line with the president's thoughts. What he's saying is apparently we need to protect everyone at any cost from their own decisions. Is that correct, Mad King Joe Biden? I don't know. The rationale behind the reasoning for this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Again, not an anti-vax show. If you're vaccinated, your chances of dying from the COVID are minimal. Whether or not other people have the vaccine is completely not concerning to you if you're vaccinated. So the rationale, this is again coming from their own CDC numbers. Their own CDC numbers say that if you're vaccinated, your chances of dying are minuscule. So who cares if other people are vaccinated or if they're not? Mr. President, what this is doing is sounding just like a draconian mandate coming from a power-hungry mad king. A grumpy old man who's run out of patience. That's what this is. That's what it is. But here's the reality of the situation, or what I think. I think that the mad king Joe Biden, let me get this picture of here that makes him look stupid. I'm sorry.
Airlines, Fox News.
What the president is saying is what I think the president is doing is trying to create a head fake. What's a head fake? When you're playing a sport, right? You fake one way, fake the other way, try to get people thrown off and going in a different direction. Here's what I think. One, the president knows this is unconstitutional, probably get struck down by the Supreme Court. Two, if businesses aren't already issuing mandates, I don't think they're going to start now. They've had 6 months to issue mandates. They're either going to do it or they're not, realistically. On top of that, it doesn't have any basis in COVID rationale. There's no sense to it. So what I think is actually happening is on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, which is tomorrow, Joe Biden would have rather had the media be talking about COVID than his dismal Afghanistan pullout. The fact that we have 50,000 people from Afghanistan coming to the United States. We have no idea who they are. And I'm not talking about the whole translator, people that helped Americans, fully vetted people. No, we're going to talk about a story from the Washington Post in a little bit that shows that we have no idea who we got out. The United States got 50,000 people out, just random Afghans who got through the checkpoint early and were able to get on planes. If you don't know this, we left about most of the interpreters, the people that work for Western civilizations in Afghanistan. We just left them there because we couldn't get them out. No, you know who got onto the planes? A bunch of randos from Afghanistan. That story's coming out. And Joe Biden doesn't want people to be talking about that on the anniversary of 9/11. He doesn't want them to be he doesn't want people to be talking about the border situation that has been completely overrun. And he's now had to backpedal because the Supreme Court said you can't do this. What Joe Biden, I believe, is doing is trying to get people back into their own political camps so that we can fight each other rather than all fighting him, because of how poorly he's conducted the past several months of his administration. That's what I think is happening. I think the Biden administration is so cynical, they think, well, let's just throw something out there that's crazy and ridiculous and get conservatives and liberals to be upset at each other over it. Because if you go on Twitter, a bunch of people are arguing back and forth now with each other. Remember, not 2 weeks ago, we were all looking at Joe Biden, criticizing him. Left, right, center. Everybody was pissed at Joe Biden's Afghanistan withdrawal. Now, we're going back to being mad at each other. Just like a good mad king would do. That's what I think is going on with this edict from Joe Biden. On top of that, this is supposedly, if it is able to fly, which again, I don't think it does constitutionally. I think the Supreme Court takes action on it and says, dude, you can't do that. Clearly, health ordinances are up to the states. But if it does, this is going to affect 100 million people. In what world is the president of the United States supposed to have the ability to affect a third of the population with the stroke of a pen? Never is the answer. Look, say what you want about Donald Trump, but never did he issue any sort of decree that affected 100 million people without any congressional approval whatsoever. Just did it. That's what's going on here. This is what a mad king does. Presidents aren't supposed to have the power to affect 100 million people with the stroke of a pen. Yet that is what Joe Biden is doing. Constitutional or not, he doesn't care. His administration doesn't care. The New York Times had an opinion piece. I'm just going to read the headline. Biden's vaccine mandate is a big mistake. The New York Post also pointed out USPS, United States Postal Service, is exempt from Biden's vaccine mandates of federal workers. He also said that federal workers need to be vaccinated, except for the United States Postal Service. Coincidentally, handles all mail-in ballots. Won't get into that, but seems kind of interesting. OSHA will issue emergency temporary standard to introduce the vaccine requirements. Companies that fail to comply, which I don't know how in the world you're going to police this, could face fines of up to $14,000 per violation, Mr. Biden said. This is all crazy. And again, this more speaks to the idea that I think that this is a head fake. I think Joe Biden is trying to get Americans going in completely another direction in order to take all of our attention off of the debacle of Afghanistan at the 20-year 9/11 anniversary. I think that's what this is. The administration is so cynical, they think we can run off and go talk about something else, about some ridiculous plan that you can't enforce and is unconstitutional. They're going to throw that out there to get us fighting with each other again, as opposed to looking at him asking for his resignation, calling for his resignation, which I think he should do. I've mentioned that 2 weeks ago. Again, I'm not a rah, I think my party is the best, and if we're not in power, then the other person needs to resign. No, I believe elections have consequences. However, Joe Biden has been so bad at what he's doing that, I feel like he should resign from his office. And this is just an attempt to get our eyes and attention away from how poorly his administration has handled so many things in the last couple months. It doesn't make any sense, probably unconstitutional, and there's no way to freaking enforce it. I want to play a clip from Joe Biden as president-elect that you might find interesting. Remember, right now, Mad King Joe Biden is issuing dictates for vaccine mandates across the country. But listen to this, why don't you, from Joe Biden, and another clip from Jen Psaki at the beginning of the administration and before the administration took office.
No, I don't think it should be mandatory. I wouldn't demand to be mandatory, but I would do everything in my power. Just like I don't think masks have to be made mandatory nationally.
That she's hit a brick wall with trying to convince people to get vaccinated. Mm-hmm. Is that a sign that perhaps the federal government should step in and issue mandates? And if not, are you putting the needs of unvaccinated people ahead of the needs of vaccinated people?
Well, I think the question here, one, that's not the role of the federal government. That is the role that institutions, private sector entities, and others may take. That certainly is appropriate.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you're right, Jen Psaki. It is not the role of the federal government. You're right, President Biden. I don't think vaccine mandates or mask mandates, as he said, as the president-elect, should be something the federal government should be in charge of. I agree with you. Here's the problem. What happened this week is the president's patience got too hot. He lost patience. The grumpy old man that wandered into the White House and found himself, unfortunately, running a country, decided that his patience was going to dictate whether or not people needed to get the vaccine or wear a mask or do whatever you want to do. How ridiculous is this? Again, He said, we're running out of patience. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. President. I didn't know that your patience had anything to do with how I want to live my life or how 100 million Americans want to live their life. This is ridiculous. I do want to get to this component of why I think, again, I've mentioned this a couple times. I think this is a head fake from the Biden administration. I think that they're trying, instead of having people focus constantly on Afghanistan and the issues that they've had abroad and domestically, this is an attempt to try and get people to get pitted against each other as opposed to angle their anger towards the Biden administration. And here's one of the reasons. I thought this was an appropriate clip or appropriate photo to show while reading this story. This story comes out of the Washington Post. Again, not a conservative-leaning news organization. Washington Post article entitled "Afghan Resettlement Raises Questions Who is Coming to the U.S.?" They talk about this guy Mustafa. So he's kind of everybody has a focal point of their articles. The first couple paragraphs are all about an individual, but this is no different. Mustafa finally safe in the cargo bay of an American military plane after surviving the chaos and violence at the Kabul airport, glanced around the other weary Afghans who were struck by what he saw. Many had minimal identification and did not appear to have worked closely with the United States as he had, serving as a translator and analyst. They were just people, he said, who took advantage of a disorderly evacuation to flee their turbulent country. Nobody knows who was the good guy and who was the bad guy getting on the plane, said Mustafa, who was asked identified only by his first name to protect relatives still in Afghanistan. He added, it's a risky thing that I believe happened. So this guy, and according to a lot of other news outlets, is saying that, none of these people are the people that we were supposed to get out. They're just random Afghans. So they're not vetted. They haven't worked for the United States. We didn't promise them anything. And regardless, we just shoved them on a plane and got them out of there. The Biden administration is then bragging about getting 120,000 people out, which is not true. It's more like 50,000, because the Biden administration, of course, is clumping in all of the numbers from everybody else's evacuation plan into their own. But of the 50,000 people, a ton of them were just randos on the streets of Kabul. Now, if I were a rando on the streets of Kabul knowing the Taliban was coming to take over, I would do everything I can to get me and my family on that plane. I'm not faulting these people. I'm faulting the Biden administration for taking a bunch of random Afghans off the streets instead of our translators, our analysts, the people who worked for the United States government and the United States military in Afghanistan. We left the majority of them behind. There are still Americans there. There are still people that worked for the United States Armed Forces in Afghanistan that didn't get out. The majority of those people didn't get out. No, we've just picked up random people off the streets and said, this is the greatest airlift of all time. Except for it wasn't, because you didn't get the right people out. If I go to a restaurant that my wife wants to go to, but I order something she doesn't want, I don't get to say, oh, look, babe, I went to your favorite restaurant and picked you up dinner. Isn't that great of me? Like, yeah, you got pizza with pineapples and anchovy on it. I don't like that. So your good deed doesn't count. But yet the Biden administration continues to boast about the great job they were doing in Afghanistan. But again, this information and these stories are continually coming out constantly every single day, and the Biden administration doesn't want people talking about that, especially on the anniversary of 9/11, which is tomorrow. So they put out this ridiculous vaccine nonsense mandate, which is unconstitutional, doesn't make any rational sense, and is completely non-enforceable. They put out this garbage yesterday in order to again, get us pitted against each other. It's the most cynical thing an administration can do. The administration officials have yet to provide estimates on how many among the 50,000 or more evacuees expected to arrive in the United States will fall into a neutral category compared with the numbers who clearly worked alongside Americans. The administration has no freaking idea how many people were actually supposed to get out, were Americans or helped Americans, or were just random Afghans wandering the streets trying to get onto an airplane. So no, Mad King Biden, the great air evacuation that you're boasting about doesn't count. Yeah, you got people out that wanted to get out. I guess good for them. The people that, the hardworking Afghanistan family who got onto that plane despite not having anything to do with the U.S. government helping us at all. Good. I would be happy if I were them. I got out of there. I can't really blame them for trying. But again, the Biden administration has been boasting about how great their evacuation was, and it went according to plan. And of course, there was going to be a little turbulence, except for you didn't order the right food from the restaurant. You goof. On top of that, not an Afghanistan thing, but again, in line with the head fake, I don't know if you saw this, but it turns out, again, something we all already kind of knew, but it turns out officially now that Dr. Fauci, hail Fauci, your liberal media elites say, Fauci can do no wrong. Except for it came out, The Intercept, who is not, again, The Intercept, if you don't know this, I'm going to set this up really quick. The Intercept is a news organization founded by this guy named Glenn Greenwald. They're an unbelievably liberal organization. Glenn Greenwald is an unbelievably liberal person. I would disagree on politics and policy with Glenn Greenwald every single day of the week. But Glenn Greenwald had to leave The Intercept because his own company, his own media outlet got too woke and so left that the super liberal Glenn Greenwald said, I can't handle it, and bounced. That is what The Intercept is. The Intercept is not Breitbart, not Fox News. It's not even MSNBC, really. It's far left of that. It's more probably in line with Mother Jones, according to Glenn Greenwald. Anyways, The Intercept picked up a bunch of emails through a Freedom of Information Act that showed that Dr. Fauci and the NIH was absolutely funding the Wuhan lab of virology that studied bat coronavirus for gain of function. Now, remember, Dr. Fauci used his legalese workarounds when being grilled by Congress, and everybody jumped on Rand Paul for saying, you don't know what you're talking about. Dr. Fauci is right, Rand Paul. You don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, turns out Rand Paul was 100% right. The NIH and Dr. Fauci, according to the emails intercepted by The Intercept, Dr. Fauci absolutely funded the Wuhan lab, knew probably that it was a leak from the Wuhan lab is how the coronavirus got out, and then covered it up. Look, you're allowed to make mistakes in government. I think government makes way too many mistakes, and I think the people there are more prone to making mistakes, but you can't cover it up, yet Dr. Fauci did. 2 days ago, Peter Doocy of Fox News asked Jen Psaki, are you going to fire Dr. Fauci? Because clearly, he, one, was lying to the American people about funding it, and two, when the lab leak theory was circulating, Dr. Fauci did everything in his power to completely cover it up. Jen Psaki, are you going to fire Dr. Fauci? Because you should. There are some people, Tom Cotton including, thinking, he should also have charges pressed. He should also be indicted. You can't completely lie to Congress, because that's what Dr. Fauci did. Anyways, the story now is, hey, Biden administration, you're going to fire Dr. Fauci? Here's another reason for the head fake. the Biden administration throws out this ridiculous vaccine mandate, which again is unconstitutional, is completely unenforceable, and isn't based in any sort of reality. All so that they can get away from stories like this. It's just the case. I think the Biden administration is that cynical. Mad King Biden trying to pit us all against each other to avoid drawing heat from himself. I got a bunch more stuff here that is kind of interesting, but we're just about out of time. Maybe we'll save it for later. Just really want to get to that Washington Examiner article from Byron York talking about racism or race and the ever-moving minority brown people such as myself moving to the right, which is, it's fascinating. Don't really have time to get really into it right now. I want to really quickly replay and maybe reset a little bit this Larry Elder clip because a lot of other people have had some comments on this. Here's, if you don't know, California, Gavin Newsom is being recalled, and a guy named Larry Elder, smart guy, been in talk radio politics for the last 20 years. Good dude. I've known Larry for a long time. Always been kind, fair to me. Anyways, he's running against King Gavin in California, and somebody threw an egg at his head now. It doesn't matter to me at all, and it shouldn't matter to anyone, but Larry Elder is a black man. The only reason I say that, because one, you probably know who Larry Elder is already, but two, it matters to this story. Watch this.
Don't touch her. Don't touch her.
So Larry Elder, black man walking down the street, gets attacked by a white woman in a gorilla mask. I'll just read the comment from LA County Sheriff Alex Villanueva, who tweeted this from the LA County Sheriff's Facebook page. Sorry, not tweeted. Posted this. He said, "How is this not a hate crime?" Answer: because woke privilege allows a white woman in a gorilla mask to attack a black man without fear of being called a racist. Where is the outrage from politicians? That's from the sheriff of LA County. Because he's right. Look, if you're going to make race a thing, you have to be consistent. In this situation, you have a black man walking down the street getting an egg thrown at him by a white woman in a gorilla mask. Remember the whole blackface controversy? People who painted their faces black got fired from their jobs or forced to resign. But flip the roles around. A woman in a gorilla mask, a white woman in a gorilla mask throws an egg at a black man. Apparently that's totally fine. You know why? Because he believes in smaller government control. How ridiculous is that? Won't get super into that because we hit that a lot yesterday. If you want to hear all of the commentary, go check out the show yesterday, anywhere you're listening or streaming podcasts. That's gonna wrap it up for us today. This is probably the comment that I saw that made the most sense to me. Just a bunch of crazy emojis. The "I'm so angry, I'm cussing" emoji, the poop emoji, the clown emoji, and the facepalm emoji. That's, I think, how about all of us feel. That's going to do it for us today. Have a great weekend. Remember the 9/11 victims tomorrow. It is the 20th anniversary of 9/11. We're not gonna do meme time today, maybe because that's end on a little bit more of a somber note, I guess. But enjoy the weekend with your families. Thanks so much for watching today. We really appreciate everybody taking the time to watch. Thanks to the Jobob Show shop. Thanks for keeping us afloat, letting us do what we like to do. Jobob Show shop, where you can get all of your favorite capitalist propaganda gear. This is the "What" t-shirt from Joe Biden. If you don't have one, mine is in the mail. I'm very excited about it. Joe Biden's catchphrase, now immortalized on a t-shirt. What? Said Joe Biden. If you're from California, this is funny. The Corruptifornia t-shirt. I promise you we'll get to other states eventually. And then the Recall King Gavin Newsom shirt, which is only relevant for the next couple days, unless he does lose, in which case it'd be fun to wear regardless. But anyways, head on over to the Jobob Show shop where you can get my favorite, the Joe Biden catchphrase t-shirt. Relatively cheap price too. So the Jobob Show shop is in the link of the show. I'm exhausted. This has been an exhausting week. One of these days, maybe we'll return back to normalcy and we will maybe get to talk about things that aren't so heavy every single day, but such is the world that we live in, Joe Biden's America. Anyway, that's going to do it. Have a great weekend. We'll see you right back here on Monday morning. God bless America.